you guys ready for Al Carfora? Clap it up for Al Carfora! Keep it going. He's coming. He's coming.
I was a project kid also. I grew up in Far Rockaway in the projects. It was a tough neighborhood. I'm only going to do one project joke, but it's very true. Kids in my generation were not pampered. We didn't have school buses. We walked a mile to school every day. One day in the 3rd grade, I was actually kidnapped on my way to school. It was very traumatic. They cut off a little piece of my ear. They mailed it to my mother. She said, "Send me more proof." They didn't screw around with kids. You know, you didn't get pampered. I went out one day to play, left the house about 8:30, 9 o'clock. I came home for dinner at 6. She said, "What are you doing here? It's not Tuesday." The project was about 90% black. We had a few white kids, a lot of Spanish. You grow up as like the only white kid in the building. It's kind of interesting because as you get older and you go into different neighborhoods, it kind of, you know, you have a little bit of effect on you. I still get anxiety attacks in white neighborhoods. It's freaking unbelievable. I just feel so out of place. So anyway, I was bored the other night and I went on the computer. I went on Ancestry.com. Yeah, because I wanted to find out my roots. Now, I always thought I was Italian. I figured, you know, people from Italy and the last name Carfora. I found out that I'm 98% Polish, which explains a lot. For example, I have this perverse sense of humor. Now, I'm Catholic. I used to think I was Italian, but I have a friend. He's sitting here in the audience today, Bruce Jaffe. Bruce and I used to go to lunch together every day at work. For some strange reason, whenever we walk by, I hope I pronounce it right, the mitzvah tank. Remember the mitzvah tank? So Bruce is as Jewish as a bagel, right? But every time I walk past the damn mitzvah tank, these young guys would run out and they'd grab me and they'd pull me in. They'd go, "Are you a Jew? Are you a Jew?" And just to be sociable, I said yes. I took my crucifix and I stuck it in my shirt. So they sit me down and they go, "Where do you daven? Where do you daven?" So I said, "Well, I go to a Reform temple and I have a woman rabbi." "Oi!" They go, "Oi!" They start banging their chest. They start beating on me. "No, no, no." I said, "Fellas, I'm just messing with you. St. Mary's Star of the Sea." They took it pretty well. They beat the crap out of me on the way out, but you know. What else happened to me? I reached a milestone. This is a little embarrassing. I feel funny talking about it. You know when you're a young guy and you know you go to the drugstore and buy your first condoms, and you kind of feel very sheepish. You know, you have to go up to the pharmacy counter back then. Now they stick them anyway. They stick them by the M&Ms. But in the old days, you had to go to the pharmacy counter. You had to ask the pharmacist. You'd say, "What do you want?" "What's that?" "You need some prophylactics." He'd say, "Spell it." "I'm not sure what you're saying." If I could freaking spell it, I'd go to Harvard. But anyway. So this is embarrassing, but for the first time in my life, I had to buy Preparation H. Now I have an image, you know. I mean, I like to. Yeah, so I walk in the drugstore and I'm dressed nice, and you know, I got my, you know, I'm looking at my Italian look, and I don't even know where the hell you look for Preparation H, you know. And I'm too embarrassed. So finally, I find it. And I was tempted to ask this lady, you know, "Could you pay for this for me? I'll give you the money, you know." But, you know, you reach a milestone. So anyway, about 6 months ago, I had my first colonoscopy. Oh, this was exciting. But the funny thing is, they ask for a photo ID the day you walk in to take the colonoscopy. They want a freaking photo ID. And I'm thinking, who the hell is going to sneak in and take a damn colonoscopy for me? Who's going to, like, you know, who is that? What the hell did he need a photo ID for? So I don't know, do I do a selfie in my ass or do I just, give you my driver's license? I don't know what to do, I think I asked you this last time, Bruce. Bruce and I have been friends for a long time. Bruce and I know each other for 20 years. If I needed money, you'd lend me money, right? If I needed a lift to the airport, would you give me a lift to the airport? Bruce, if I asked you to take a colonoscopy for me, what would you say to me? I've been retired from my real job now for about 3 years, but, a lot of guys have hobbies. They golf, they fish, they hunt. You know what I do for a hobby? You know how I freaking relax? You know how effing sick I am? I give driving lessons in New York City. I don't even have to go any further. That's not even a freaking punchline. I give driving, 32 years I've been giving driving lessons in the car. I know, right? And I'm still here. So here's something funny that happens the other day. I got to take a lady to a road test from Hewlett, Long Island, which is kind of a wealthy area. She said, hey, Hewlett Harbor, baby. Hewlett Harbor. Us guys from the projects used to ride through there and look at the girls. Anyway, wow, look at all the white women. But anyway, so I take her to the road test. I pick her up at a fancy house in Hewlett Harbor. I got to drive her out to Wantor. So we get in the car, and, when you take somebody to a road test, you got to make sure they have their paperwork, the permit and the 5-hour class certificate. So I said to her, let me see your permit, let me see your 5-hour class certificate. I just want to make sure you have the right paperwork. So everything was in order. And women being women, she said, I'm a little nervous. Can I just go in the house and use the ladies' room for a minute? I said, sure. I'm not going to, put you under undue pressure. She comes out of the house. We drive all the way to the road test site, 45 minutes away. We sit online for an hour. The inspector comes up. This is a true story. I can't freaking believe it. The inspector comes up and she says to her, I need to see your permit and your 5-hour class certificate. She reaches into her bag and she says, oh my God. She says, when I went in the house to use the bathroom, I changed my pocketbook. I'm like, how do you, I can't even, I love women, but I don't understand them sometimes. Another thing that happened, and this is another true story. I'm going through Long Beach the other day with a student. She's from Paris, France, a very sophisticated young lady. She's a little nervous when she drives. All of a sudden, the Long Beach cops pull me over. 32 years of driving, I've never been pulled over with a student. The cop is a little sheepish because I got the driving school car and everything. And he says, can I talk to you over here privately? So I said, yes, no problem. I go over to the cop and he says, I got a little bit of a problem. He says, I'm supposed to lock you up. I said, what's the problem? He says, your plate is coming up stolen on your driving school car. It's coming up as a freaking stolen plate. This is not a joke. This is a true story. So he says, can I see your license and registration insurance card? So I show it to him. So he says, I don't understand. He goes, I have to lock you up. He says, and I have to take the student in. She's driving. So I said, listen, I'm no genius, but can we just check the number on the computer? So he checks the number, and the plate number matches my car. But I know the car's not stolen. I've had it for a year and a half and everything. So long story short, he says, let me just try something. He says, let me just refresh the computer. Let me just reboot it. He reboots it, and it comes up okay. True story. and you can't make this stuff up. But here's another story that happened about 10 years ago. I took a lady out to drive for the first time. Now, for some reason, when people get behind the wheel for the first time, they're a little bit nervous. I don't understand that, but they are. So go figure. So I take her out on Mott Avenue, which is the busiest street in Far Rockaway. This is a tough neighborhood. It's a busy street. I put her behind the wheel of a car, and she's nervous as hell. She's shaking, and we get a half a block down, and she's doing pretty good in the heavy traffic. The buses are coming, and the cabs, and the gypsy vans, and everything. So all of a sudden, we get stuck in a traffic jam. While we're sitting there in the traffic jam, the Chase Manhattan Bank gets robbed. 3 guys run out of the bank. Their getaway car took off. So they run over to my driving school car. They open the door. They pull me out of the car. That's why you should lock your doors. They pull me out of the car. They jump in with this poor lady who never drove before. This is why I love this job. I never know what's going to happen from day to day. They get in. One guy puts a gun to her head. The other guy sticks a pistol in her stomach. And she starts crying. She starts shaking. She looks at the guy with the pistol. She says, "I'll do anything you want," she says. Just don't ask me to parallel park." You know, you talk about priorities. Had another guy from Afghanistan. They don't tell me at the school he doesn't speak a word of English. He knows one word in English, and that one word is okay. All he knows is okay. I said, "How are you?" "Okay." "Great." He pulls out. We're going down the road. I said, "Do me a favor. Make a right turn at the next corner." "Okay." Keeps going straight. So I figure he's a little nervous. I said, "The next corner. Let's make a left turn over here." "Okay." Keeps going straight. This is going on for a long time, so I finally figure out that he doesn't understand English. So I never did this to a student before, but I figure I gotta have a little fun. I gotta get out some frustrations. I said, "Do you understand any fucking thing in English?" He looks at me and he goes, "Okay, okay." You know what's not a good disease for a driving instructor to have? We hired a guy one time who had narcolepsy. He used to fall asleep during driving lessons. Now, he only lasted with us for a week. But it was a little embarrassing because one day he takes another new student out, and while the student is driving, and they're on a very, very busy 3-lane road in Far Rockaway, Seagirt Boulevard, and while the student is driving, he falls asleep. So the student doesn't know what to do, so he drives up on the divider in the middle of Seagirt Boulevard, and he's sitting there, and the instructor is sound asleep. So eventually the police pull up, and they see this guy sleeping. They see the student next to him who looks like he saw a ghost. He was from India or something. He's like so nervous, but very polite. So they take the car back to the driving school along with the student and the instructor. Now, we had an old-time boss back then. All he cared about was, you know, making money. So they walk into the school, and the cops say, "Marty, we were going down Seagirt Boulevard on patrol, and we see this driving school car sitting there in the middle of Seagirt Boulevard." He says, "And your freaking driving instructor fell asleep. He's sound asleep during the driving lesson. What do you got to say about that?" So Marty looks at the student, he looks at the cops, he looks at the instructor, he says, "Sandy," that was the guy's name, Sandy. He says, "I have one question for you." He goes, "Yes." He said, "Did you get the $25 for the lesson?" Just. I don't know. What else can I tell you? How many people here? Oh, I know what I can tell you. I have twin sisters. They're both 2 years younger than me. I taught them both how to drive when we were teenagers. This is amazing. The same genetic background, the same neighborhood, the same car, the same teacher, et cetera, et cetera. The first one passes the road test the first time. The second one fails it 9 times. Eventually, the state, this was the days when they sent you the thing in the mail, they didn't tell you right away if you passed the road test. Eventually, the state sends her a letter saying she's got a driver's license. My theory was they were running out of money for the postage every time she fails. How many people here have problems parallel parking?
Oh, come on.
There's got to be a punchline there somewhere when a guy puts up his hand and has problems parallel parking. I just want to end with a little thing about doctors and stuff. You know, you ever go in the hospital and you're a patient in the hospital and you want to find out what's wrong with you, and you say to the doctor, "What's wrong with me?" Doctor says, "Well, you know, we're going to run a little test. We're going to see what we're doing. You know, we got to figure out what's going on. We'll get back with the lab results." This is why I love nurses. You say to the head nurse, "What's wrong with me?" "Oh, nobody told you. You're freaking dying. You know, you're in bed." They give it to you straight. So this Italian guy gets his hand cut off in an industrial accident. And he's a little bit on the cheap side. So he goes to Park Avenue, he goes to the hospital for special surgery, and he goes, "Hey, how much does it sew my hand back on?" And they do all the MRIs and everything, and they say, "Oh, it's going to cost you $25,000. He goes, "Oh, my God." So he goes to a Medicaid mill on Coney Island Avenue in Brooklyn. He says, "How much to sew my hand back on?" They look at it, they go, $500. He says, "That's good. So they sew the hand back on. He's got full range of motion of the hands. His nerves are working. Everything's working real good. The next day, he's walking to Manhattan. He's so happy. He's got his hand back. He sees the Park Avenue surgeon that wanted $25,000. He says, hey, I saw you the other day. You wanted $25,000 to sew my hand back on. He says, I get it done in Brooklyn on Coney Island Avenue. $500. He goes, I'm a fangool. Thanks very much.
Al Carfora! Clap it up. Good stuff for Al Carfora.